Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly and I am your host. And I'm joined as always by my partner who would just love to sell you a brand new water filter. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
Hey, do you have change for 20?
No.
No? Oh, well, here, let me, give me your wallet.
Give me your, this is your con? Is just
give me your wallet.
That's just robbery, Matt. It's not con.
You know, I'm not as creative as Nicolas Cage or Ridley Scott for that matter.
This week on the show, our series Deconstructing the Films of Ridley Scott does finally continue with the director's 14th film. It has been an entire month since we did this series, Matt. I can't believe it. It's been a month since we talked about Black Hawk Down, but we're finally back and we're ready to talk about Ridley Scott's 14th film, 2003's Matchstick Men. I've been looking forward to this for so long, and it finally is here.
Me too. I was starting to think that this movie was just cursed.
Me too. And because it's a special day, we're finally getting back with Sir Ridley Scott and this series we've been going through. I thought we'd do something new and something special for the second half of our show. The Nicolas Cage is in the movie we're going to be talking about today, Matt. And I thought it'd be fun to officially and formally induct Mr. Nicolas Cage into the Doof Media Hall of Fame. It's prestigious. There's no one else in there right now. It's the first and only so far.
It's maximally prestigious if you think about it, because it's it's a giant hall, and he's going to be the only guy in it.
He's just there. Unfortunately, we have to do some stuff before we induct Mr. Cage. We can't just say, take the velvet rope down and say, "Welcome, Nicholas, you live here now." We actually have to come up with a list of films to go with him in there. He's going to be in there. He's going to be living in there, and he's going to have a stack of Blu-rays in there with him. And these Blu-rays, 10 of them will be the 10, not necessarily best, but most Nicolas Cagey.
Signature films.
Yeah. The films that I think are most defining of the career of Nicolas Cage. So we have to go through every single one of the 100 and something films that Nicolas Cage has been in and decide which 10 are most defining of his. So we're going to be doing that in the second half of the show. We are not, of course, going to go through the films actually one by one, because I am not kidding. There are literally 108 of them, which is just insane, actually. Seven movies in 2019, Matt. He was in 7 movies in 2019.
Pretty much all the recent years. It's just a ridiculous number of movies. I don't know how he even physically schedules it in.
He's got to pay for all those houses.
Well, not anymore, because he's going to be living in the Hall of Fame.
That is true. Sell your houses, Nick. You're living. There's marble there. Not too many cushions, actually. So it's going to be a little uncomfortable. But that's okay. That's okay, Nick.
Yeah,
that's okay.
There's statues, lining the walls
of just him, right?
Of him, currently just him. But
there's one statue of him, and then there's several other statues that are just blank, featureless people, and that's all he has to talk to.
Yeah,
but
and sometimes the hall floods with water.
Okay, that's. I mean, actually, let's just call it that. Let's just say that we're sending all these actors to. I forgot what it was called that in that book.
The house. It's called The House.
It's just The House. I'm struggling to even remember the fucking name of the book right now. Actually,
Piranesi.
Thank you, Matt. This is why you're here. All right, but before we induct Mr. Cage into the Hall of Fame, we have to talk about one of his movies, and that movie is also a Ridley Scott movie. Which is Matchstick Men. So let's get into it and talk all about Matchstick Men.
Would you like to tell me what's been bothering you?
No, I don't like being outdoors.
Tell me you've left the house in 3 days.
1, 2, 3.
Have you eaten anything in 3 days? Besides canned tuna?
Anything else?
Dirt. Obviously, I have a lot of ticks.
These distractions affected you workably? What would you do if you had to change careers?
What, if I wasn't an antiques broker?
If you weren't a criminal?
Matt, what is this movie all about?
A phobic con artist and his protege are on the verge of pulling off a lucrative swindle when the former's teenage daughter arrives unexpectedly.
This movie was written by Nicholas and Ted Griffin, based on the novel by Eric Garcia. It is, of course, directed by Sir Ridley Scott, and it stars our Hall of Fame inductee, Nicolas Cage, as well as Sam Rockwell and Alison Lohman. And Matt, I gotta know, what did you think of Matchstick Men? Had you seen this movie before this project? I can't remember.
I had seen this movie once before, and this is one of those movies, and this is central to what I want to talk about with this movie and with Ridley Scott in general.
Sure.
Is much like the previous movie, Black Hawk Down. It is a movie that I had seen once before and said to myself, holy shit, I never want to see that again. Not because it's a bad movie, but because it's so painful. Like I just like, you're following around this poor, sad character, and then it's like, he's finally going to catch a break. This is great. And it's like, you lift him just high enough off the ground so you can smash him back down twice as hard. And yes, he does end the movie in a good spot, but that's like the last 5 minutes. Like, most of the movie is him suffering and horrible things happening. And so I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm saying it's a great movie, actually. It's so fascinating to me how Ridley Scott goes on these tears of making movies that are just like actively painful to watch. I don't know if you feel the same at all, but I've always felt that way about this movie. It was a little less painful for me this time on the rewatch because I knew where it was going. So I was just like, okay, this is well done, obviously well executed, everything is great. But it's just a sad movie, I think.
This is so fascinating to me. First of all, I just want to say I love this movie. I think this is a phenomenal movie. I enjoy watching it every time I've seen it, and it's been many, many times that I've watched this movie. I almost completely disagree with you, though. So this is what I love about movies. I love movies are one of the only things in the world that can do this, where they can trick you into feeling really bad for absolutely terrible people. Because Nicolas Cage's character in this movie is he's a bad guy. He steals money from old people. That is his job. That is what he does. And yet you are absolutely correct that throughout the course of the movie, we are completely on his side. We are completely like, oh man, this poor guy, like he's carrying around so much guilt about robbing old people that it's really making his life hard. Oh, and it's like you don't even realize that. Like, you don't even realize that you've been kind of swindled by the movie itself in that regard. And I love it. I mean, I think it's certainly true that this is a movie that has sad moments in it, but I think I don't know, those last 5 minutes are the key to it for me, that like he is so much happier, he is so much better, and that the movie says that there was something real between their relationship, that is true, that she being Angela, his fake daughter, was conning him, but that there was something real going on between them in that relationship. There was some kind of actual father-daughter thing being formed in the middle of this con. And I don't know, I find that absolutely beautiful.
It is, but I still think it's sad. I mean, look, I'm not going to argue, right? Like we have each had our own genuine, apparently both powerful emotional reactions to this movie. I do think it's really interesting that we had different emotional reactions. Mm-hmm. I think I anchor on the idea that like he thought his whole life was going to change and he was going to get to have this daughter in his life, and it was going to redeem the mistakes and bad choices that he had made, and then just tacking on at the end, like, well, there was something real there. It's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't really change his life. It doesn't really give him the future that he thought he was going to have. Now,
yeah, but he gets that future, just not with her.
He gets the future, but not with her. But for me, I don't know if okay, here's what I'll say. The first time I saw the movie, I felt cheated by that. This time watching the movie, I bought it, and I was like, okay, he made the change. He had to earn the change. He had to actually lose everything, lose all of his money, lose all of his ill-gotten gains, and then start over being just himself, living an honest life. And then he earned the honest life. He earned the child and the wife and all the stuff that he thought he would never get because he didn't deserve it, because he paid it himself, basically. Mm-hmm. And that landed correctly for me this time. I will say, I saw this movie probably whenever it came out, so 2003, so 20 years ago. Um, and I still remember how I felt, like in detail. Due to the just like total sadness and desolation of the ending. So you could say, hey Matt, that was 20 years ago. Maybe you weren't as good at like reading movies back then. And I'm like, yeah, maybe so. I'm just honestly reporting my feelings about it, and especially in context of I just to repeat myself, I guess, like this falling upon Black Hawk Down. It's like it just really seems like Ridley is going for stuff that is just meant to be a gut punch that you don't walk away from necessarily feeling, uplifted in any way, shape, or form. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think the emotional resonance of these two films is very much in line with each other, which is interesting considering how in every other way they are entirely different types of projects for Ridley Scott, right? Like this is a small movie compared to anything he did before, recently before it, right? I think this movie actually, I think, has most in common with maybe Black Rain than it does any other Ridley Scott movie up until this one, just because it's about a bad person who goes through hell to become a good person. It is like, if you look back at like even White Squall, G.I. Jane, Gladiator, Hannibal, Black Hawk Down, these are huge movies, and he really suddenly goes, I want to tell a smaller, character focused small story, and I think I want to film it that way too. I think that's one of the interesting things to me, is that there's very little of what you would call, I think, the standard Ridleyisms to me, of the composition of his film being intrinsically beautiful. I mean, there's a couple moments in the film where I think he lets his flag fly a little bit, but most of the way this movie is shot is like very kind of down to earth. I think there's a lot of handheld in here. It's very intimate, very close. Not a lot of pretty comps and things at all, really. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt like a very different kind of Ridley Scott movie, while also acknowledging that you're absolutely right. He seems to be really interested in the idea of emotionally fucking with you.
Yeah. Visually, there are some interesting things. Like, I feel like he's often playing with light, which plays into the idea that Nicolas Cage's character has these like strong kind of reactions, like when there's like a particular scene when like a door is left open, and this like triggers one of his OCD sensitivities, and he kind of flips out, and and like the way that is shot and kind of portrayed on film is sort of channeling how this feels for him, where there's like incredibly bright light, but just in general the way light is treated, I think is very it's very stark. There's a lot of like, I guess I'd say like high contrast, like when it's bright, it's bright. When it's dark, and then very often it'll be like they'll be indoors, and there'll be like a bright window somewhere. There's just a lot of contrast in general.
Yeah, I noticed, especially early on in the film, even when he was outside, the way the movie is kind of lit is very washed out in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and I think it is, as light kind of just, it's like Ridley is using light as a thing that's trying to penetrate Nicolas Cage's life and try to like shine a light, like try to bring him into the light in a way, and he's constantly rejecting it throughout. And then of course Angela, his daughter, becomes that way into it, perfectly demonstrated in the movie, where like she's always kind of wanting to be outside, right? Like she's always like she on the swing set, she's at, like there's just constantly wanting to be outside and doing things, and that is the exact opposite of what he wants to do in his life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what you just said is dead on. That the idea that we're using the light as a metaphor for the thing that he wants, or rather the thing that he needs but doesn't want, I guess you could say, in terms of character construction. But one of the earlier scenes in the movie is like the first time we see him in his house. He's like standing. I don't remember exactly the image and the way it's framed, but I know that he's like standing like at the back window, and he's like looking outside through the shutters.
Yeah.
So he's and imagistically, it's like he's yearning for what is outside, but he can only peer at it through the shutters. He can't even open the shutters because that's like too much for him.
Yeah. That's such a good point, because one of the things I really picked up on is that he has a pool. He has a house with a pool.
Uh-huh.
And so like if you look at his house, like you could frame it as like the quintessential house of Americana, right? Like this is it looks like a suburban house. He's got the pool in the backyard. Like it's a life that he really wants, but he's not actually living it. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically trapped in the house like it's a cage, and
Mhm.
also I think metaphorically it works on that level, and it also works on the level that he is explicitly agoraphobic.
Yeah.
And so for a character,
How many different things does he have? Because he has
Well,
Tourette's.
yeah,
He's definitely agoraphobic. He seems to also have obsessive compulsive disorder.
yeah. Unfortunately, I think this is like late '90s, early 2000s. Hand waving mental illnesses, because yes, he has all the things you just mentioned.
Well, it plays into the trope that like mental illness is not real. It's just actually you have something else going on, and it's being being displayed as a mental illness, and the way to get better is just to get over it, and to get over the actual source of your trauma, is like
Yeah.
as if to say that these things aren't actually real, which I know the movie isn't actually explicitly saying that. Like it's just specifically saying that his manifestation of these illnesses is psychosomatic, is
Yeah.
his guilt manifesting in all these weird tendencies.
Yeah, guilt and feeling like he has just kind of fucked up his life, because
Yeah.
I mean the explicitly all of his problems go away when he starts spending time with the daughter that he thought he lost, and then he realizes that the medicine that he got was a placebo, and it's like, oh, so he just needed to feel like there was some kind of meaning to his life. It's
Mhm.
interesting. So you've said a couple of times that it's the guilt. You could be totally right. I'm less sure that it's the guilt over swindling people, and I think it has more to do with the idea that he feels like he's wasted his life. Now, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting some specific scene that kind of nails that in. But to me, I'm thinking about the time when like he's talking to his fake psychiatrist, and he's like, the psychiatrist, he's like, yeah, so me and my daughter did a con together, and the psychiatrist is like, yeah. How do you feel about that? And he's, and Nicolas Cage is like trying to pretend that this isn't like the most awesome thing that's ever happened. So I just don't see a ton of direct evidence that he does feel bad about conning all these people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the line that he gives the psychiatrist there, that he gets to use at the end of the movie, is just like, is the I never took anything from them that they didn't freely give. Like it's their fault. Like that is, excuses. That's kind of bullshit that he's had to build his life upon. To me, I don't know. To me, it always read as guilt, and I don't think you're wrong that there definitely is some regret about his life in there. I think it does certainly say something, that how quickly in this whole thing, he immediately went to his. Was he married to the woman before? I think he was married to her, his former wife, and their child. How quickly that comes out, and it makes you wonder about the con itself. Like, did Sam Rockwell just hire this psychiatrist to kind of see what is bothering him, like see what angle to take, and then had to rush out and find a girl that could pass as 14 to hire for that part? Probably, right? I don't know how much of the con was like constructed in advance or not.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the order of events, because I almost felt like did he? Yeah, I don't remember who he opened up to first. If he opened up to the psychiatrist, or if he mentioned the daughter to Sam Rockwell.
I don't
first.
think we ever see him mention the daughter to Sam Rockwell.
Okay.
I think really the only Sam Rockwell interaction we have is him recommending the psychiatrist, then him going to the psychiatrist, and then him very quickly mentioning the daughter. And then,
yeah, I think you're right. I think he hired the psychiatrist as a co-conspirator to figure out like what is a lever we can get on this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I to get back to the point, I don't know. I did see a lot of guilt there. I mean, I just the type of neuroses that's going on there, like to me, is just feels like a manifestation of both unhappiness in life, but also dealing with I mean, he's I don't know. I guess to me, if he wasn't feeling guilty about conning people, then he wouldn't have stopped at the end of the film. Like
Yeah.
that wouldn't have been part of his, reformation to his new, more contented life.
Yeah, I think that's the clearest indication that there was always a lot of dissatisfaction about just the whole, just kind of everything about his life was wrong, and he knew it was wrong. And I think he probably did get a thrill out of like I don't think he's lying when he says he gets a thrill out of robbing people.
Yeah.
But I think that also he feels bad about it at the same time, and
Yeah.
and since that's all he has, then he just keeps doing it.
I mean, we never see how he got into it, right? I mean, we know that he dropped out of school at some point, and he does have some guilt about that. We never really see like how he became a con artist. Presumably, it's just he was really good at it, right? And I think that's what he enjoys about it the most, is that this is a thing that he's actually very, very good at. And it feels good to be good at something, right? Even if the thing that you're good at is terrible.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Right. Like, I agree. Yeah. It's both things. He has fun doing it, but then also I think it tears him up, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. Right. And he's explicitly trying to retire. That's what's, I think, just, storytelling wise, that's what's just clever about it, is he's, it's a one last score heist movie, actually.
Yeah.
And then of course instead of being a successful heist, it's a con movie. It's a heist movie wrapped in a con movie. So the heist is actually pulled on him, and he loses all his money. And then, as we pointed out before, he has to kind of start over. But starting over is what he really needed anyway.
I'm glad you said it was a heist movie, because we've talked on the show in the past about how much I love just heist movies in general. And I think the con artist movie is like a stepchild of the heist movie, right? I think they usually involve some sort of heist like thing, and I love con artist movies too. I think there's something so kind of viscerally satisfying about seeing a con operate and work in a way that like completely like success. Like I think I guess what I'm saying here is I get completely why Nic Cage like is like greedily watching his daughter work in the lottery ticket con they run, and just like eating it up. And because that's what was me too. Like I love the way Ridley Scott shoots this, because he shoots it so much through like windows and mirrors, where Nic Cage is like sitting in the car watching her, or looking through the rearview mirror, like, and it kind of puts him in the same situation as us, as like we're separated by a pane of glass watching her do this con. And I was just completely absorbed in how just kind of clever and effective it is. And that's the fun thing about con artist movies, is that we get to be like, wow, that's actually really clever, without having to worry about that they just stole $300 from an innocent woman who did nothing wrong.
Yeah, right. I love the actress who's the victim there. Like, I mean, number one, I just love her in everything that I've seen her in, but also like it's great how she's so genuinely happy to have made this money, right? And it's like, and there's just an incredibly, it's just a very rich vein of drama to be like, yeah, our characters are gonna take these people who are just innocent folk going about their lives, and we're gonna flesh those characters out just enough that you feel really bad about them. Yeah, it's interesting that I'm now remembering, like, he does make her give the money back to the woman.
Yeah.
Which is another one of those kind of clues to support your theory that he feels bad about this and doesn't want to do it.
I don't, like, maybe this makes me an asshole, but like when she calls the lottery ticket office to figure out how much the ticket won, and she goes, "We've won 600," and I was like, "Oh wow, dollars." Oh, like, I don't know. I just like, I think that's the most heartbreaking part about it, is she is so excited about, like, I mean, it's not like $600, that's good money, but still, like, she's so excited about 600, in essence, $300. And that's the most heartbreaking thing of it all, is and that's what they're doing, right? The one thing he says is, you have to target the most vulnerable people. You have to target, like, the older, the better, because those are the easiest people to manipulate. And it's awful. It's horrible. Like, I love that the movie kind of opens us on just getting to see a successful con. Like, we see how he robs this poor woman of her money, not only takes $700 from her, but then presumably just cleans out their bank account, right?
Right.
Because they get the bank information and his signature and his account number, and so presumably they just clean that account out.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's truly awful.
That scene by itself is like a perfect little play, because like the way the husband reacts, where the husband is like, oh my God, I don't remember what her name is. Oh my God, Marie. And he's just on the verge of like calling her an idiot, but he's like restraining himself from, but he's clearly just like so mad and annoyed and disdainful of his wife for falling for this con. And then of course he is actually, if you think about it, he's the victim of the con. He is the primary victim in a certain sense, because now that they've suckered you in, now they get like all of the extra information that they need, right?
Yeah, this is the most fun thing about con movies, because it's so clever in that, like, while the initial part of the con is going on, we hear, oh, she wants to talk with her husband first, and the assumption here is she wants to talk with her husband first because her husband will talk her out of doing this, and in actuality, they want to avoid talking to her husband first because her husband not knowing about the initial con is what they use to con him for the big money, right? Like her operating independently on this first one is like what they're using as kind of the distraction. Use his anger and disappointment at his wife's ability to get taken that way as a distraction for not noticing that you've just handed your bank account information over to a random person that walked up to your door.
And it's also a good trick on us, the audience, to make us not really hate Nic Cage as much as we otherwise might, because it's like, well, this guy was being such a jerk to his wife. He kind of deserves to, be financially ruined.
Financially ruined forever. Yeah.
Totally and you don't think those words in your head, because that's silly. But what you think is like, well, he's kind of a jerk. I don't really feel much about him. Like I feel bad for his wife, but this guy, he kind of sucks. And it's just a classic protagonist goggles thing, except in movie form, where we're kind of predisposed to like our person we're following around anyway. Yeah. And then you just show like, oh, well, the people he's conning, they don't always react the best in all situations. So they probably deserve it. Like we're so eager to find justifications for these things that it's just really easy to pull that on us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the general idea that we're heartbroken that he loses all his money at the end of the movie. And it's like, wait a minute, if you step back for a second, $1 million, you had $1 million that you stole from innocent old people who did nothing wrong. Like that's, it's awful. He's a terrible human being. He's a horrible human being that I fucking love to death, actually.
The worst part is that Sam Rockwell is the one who ends up with $1 million.
Yeah. Damn it, Sam Rockwell. And he stiffs the girl. He stiffs her.
Yeah.
Damn it, Sam Rockwell. I think actually if I had one critique against this movie, I wish it had more Sam Rockwell in it. I think it when I think back about this movie, when I remember watching this movie for the first time, I really thought it was a much more kind of a threesome is the wrong word, but I really remember it as being about all three of these characters and not just the Nicolas Cage, Alison Lohman relationship. But really it is mostly Roy and his daughter, and Sam Rockwell's a pretty bit part in the whole thing, actually.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't, it's really about him and his relationship with the girl, right? Like that's what's funny is, I called it a heist movie wrapped in a con movie, but like what it really is a family drama, right? Except of course they're not really father and daughter, but like as far as the emotionality of the movie is concerned, that doesn't matter. It's a real relationship, like you said before.
Yeah. One of the things I kind of want to talk to you about in that relationship, we talked about how at the end it's kind of revealed, I think, that the relationship meant a little bit more to her. I watched the movie this time because I've watched it twice now because we had to delay this episode by a whole freaking month. The second time I watched it in preparation for this episode, I was paying much closer attention to Alison Lohman's performance. And I'm curious what you think about the idea that like this is really fucking her up, the entire time she's doing this, right? Like I think one of the fun things about the reveal at the end is that like, oh, this isn't some kind of suave professional con artist that kind of got pulled into this thing. Sam Rockwell just found this girl, presumably, that looked the part for the age and could do it, but she's not a con artist, really. Like she said, this was a one and done job. And so you look at the scenes like where he's like, first of all, where they're like going bowling, which I honestly, my headcanon read on this is that Angela, I don't know what her real name is, but the girl, she just really wanted someone to take her bowling, and she just used this con as an excuse to actually go, because she mentions it like 3 times throughout the movie, going bowling. I love that. And also like the scene where he kind of takes her aside and says, like I talked to a lawyer and like I'm gonna sue for partial custody and like we're gonna get to hang out. It'll only be weekends and certain holidays and stuff at first, but I'm really invested in this. I think if you look at Alison Lohman's face, knowing what you know about at the end of the movie, this is really fucking her up. This is like fucking her up on multiple levels. Fucking her up because she's realizing how committed this guy is to this whole thing, and fucking her up because I think she's feeling a little touched as well, that this man is like super willing to strengthen and move on with this relationship with them. I don't know. Am I completely off base here?
No, I totally think you're right. I mean, I think the ending scene of the movie, solidifies the idea that she did care about him and feels bad about everything that happened, and definitely was almost immediately in over her head. But she, the thing is, the kind of the less we know about her, the better. Interestingly, right?
Yeah.
Because like we could have had a scene like, okay, so I can say something like, it feels like she's maybe working through her own issues with her own father. Maybe she was abandoned by her father, and him serving as a surrogate father is actually, serving some needs that she had that she was struggling with, and so there's a lot of reality. There's a mixture of performance and truth to what this character is going through, and it's like, okay, Matt, that's all made up. Like we don't know that at all, but it's plausible, right?
Sure.
And so like the fact that we don't really know much about her at all allows us to project that kind of thing. But I think you're very much on the right track. Like I think there's one scene I think where like he just sees her crying randomly, where like she doesn't even necessarily know that he's watching, and that was a moment where I was like, I wonder if she's just so upset about this whole situation that she's just kind of breaking down, and then she's able to have some made up reason why she's crying. But
yeah, her performance is so interesting because she's, out of anyone in this movie, she's, I think, has one of the hardest jobs, because she's got to play an adult acting like she's younger than she is, acting like a kid, while also trying to channel real emotions here. And I think one of the interesting things when you really study her character throughout the movie, I think you can kind of see the double layer of the performance of her trying to feel out what a 14-year-old would act like. And I actually think there are moments early in the movie where she's playing her a little too young. And I think the cool thing about that is Roy would have no idea, because he just is like never around children and doesn't know what a 14-year-old would act like at all. And like, so I think it's interesting, like early in the movie, she's kind of like almost too manic at times, and like she's just saying, oh, like kids have a lot of energy and like blah blah blah, I'm gonna be all over the place, and I think throughout the movie that performance kind of calms down too, as his neuroses calm down. I think her kind of mania in a little ways calms down, as she's, I think, perhaps becoming more herself as well. Less performance, less me pretending like I'm 14, and more just me being myself in these moments. I picked up on that a lot on this rewatch, and again, I don't know if that's something that was intentionally there, textually there, or not, but it feels like it's there to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, it's the kind of thing where it's like, well, is it real? Like, it's like, well, it is what it is on the screen. She does begin almost, a sort of what we're able to say, knowing the way the movie goes, we're able to say like it's kind of a cartoonish caricature of what you imagine a 14-year-old to be like. I mean, honestly, watching it now, I was like, I wonder how I would take this movie watching it now, because, you know, she's more like a 9-year-old or something than a 14-year-old, just in terms of like overall childishness. Like
Yeah.
14-year-olds are actually trying really hard to be grown up.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, she's being very, very kiddish in a lot of ways. But it's all believable, right? It's all you buy that Nicolas Cage would buy it. And honestly, the first time I saw the movie, it's not something I was even thinking about at all.
No, yeah, I mean that's the great part about the movie is like I think all of this might be subconscious, but like you're not thinking about it as you go, and that's the great part of the con is that this movie is kind of doing a con on you the whole time as well, as Nicolas Cage is being conned. Yeah,
right.
And there's all these fun things you can pay attention to, like the fact that like whenever he drops her off at her house, she always invents a reason, you know, to be dropped off further away from the house than right in front. Like I think the first time it's like she says something like, "Oh, her car's in the driveway," and like throws herself like on the floorboards of the car and says, "No, drop me off here." And then when he's picking her up at school from summer school, like he's standing there waiting outside this, or sitting there in his car waiting outside the school, and like the way that the camera keeps cutting as it cuts to like these shots of the school doors, and you think she's going to be coming out of those doors, but when we actually see her, she just kind of approaches the passenger side window from the side, and it's like, whoa, where'd she come from? Like it's this moment that like it doesn't feel weird in the moment, but like it's kind of cleverly constructed to where the movie never actually technically lies to you. It just doesn't show you everything.
Yeah, stuff like that, you have to be pretty deft, right? Because you know, again, I saw this 20 years ago, but I definitely didn't have any real suspicion. Interestingly, like, I wonder if, you know, mature me would have watched this movie for the first time and been like, all right, you know, where's the meta con? Like I'm trope savvy. I'm looking for the angles. Because the first time it just totally got me, like when he wakes up in the hospital bed, and it's I was just like crushed. I was like, I didn't have any clue that this is where we were going.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I do think these days I'd probably go into a con artist movie expecting someone to con the con artist. Like I feel like that's just going to be happening. Like I don't know, did you ever see the Will Smith movie Focus? That was when did that come out? It came out a few years ago. That's another con artist movie. It's a really good one, by the way. It's one where he's he's in this movie with Margot Robbie, and their chemistry on screen is like, oh, those two actors definitely banged each other offset, because their on-screen chemistry is just incredible. But it's another one of those movies where like I remember watching it. It came out in 2015, and I remember watching it going, oh, at some point this guy's going to be actually getting conned, and spoilers, but that does happen in several ways.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it only takes a small level of trope awareness to begin looking for these things, which is kind of interesting, because like I'm thinking of another movie I saw, like the David Mamet film Heist, which came out around the same time as this movie, actually. And that was another one where like I was totally caught off guard by like, oh no, the Gene Hackman's friends are trying to con him now. Oh my god! And it's like, I do think that this is a particular genre of film where the first few instances of it that you see are probably going to land very differently, and then once you realize like, oh, like this is that's what this is, like,
yeah.
And I think maybe even part of it is there's a distinction. I'm actually cribbing something from Brandon Sanderson here, because I saw like a breakdown he did of like different story archetypes. But like, there's a difference between a con movie and a heist movie. Yeah, because generally speaking, like in Ocean's 11, you really don't expect Brad Pitt to try to con George Clooney. You would be off base. Like, that's not the kind of movie this is. You do expect some extra level of double cross, or not double cross. You expect some extra level of trickery beyond what you've been shown, which is what always happens in a heist movie. But a con movie, as distinct from a heist movie, involves double cross, involves betrayal of the primaries.
Yeah, I don't understand how people in con that are con artists trust other people ever, because like, and I think that's the beauty of this movie too. Is I again, I can't remember what it was like the first time I watched it, but especially these times when like he very casually says, "Oh, I'm going to add your name to the safety deposit box, authorized signatories," and you're like, "What? Why would you? Why are
Uh-huh.
you being so immediately trusting of this girl?" And I think that's part of it, right? The reason he's being so immediately trusting of this girl is because this girl is fulfilling in him something he wasn't even aware that he needed, and like he's so happy, and enamored by this life that he's found himself in, that he is kind of ignoring probably all the warnings going off in his head. And I think it's great because the effectiveness of cons is that like they play into your weakness, and they, even a con artist can be conned, because if you successfully play into their weakness, they will hand you the money.
Yeah. Also, I would think like it's exhausting to not be able to trust anyone.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
this is an idea that's played on in some con movies where like they are able to be manipulated because it's so isolating to never be able to trust anyone with secrets, and so they're like, I found this one person who's my true love, or just this one guy who's my partner, who I just, it's him and me against the world, and then I'm going to share with you and just you, because because it's important to have that kind of, you have to have that kind of closeness, or you feel so isolated, and then of course that's
Yeah.
the movie uses that to twist the knife ultimately.
Definitely. So one thing we haven't spent a lot of time talking about is Nicolas Cage himself and the performance in this movie. And I think this is a movie kind of, which maybe this is a good lead into our next topic in a few minutes, but he goes full Cage several times throughout this movie. But I think it is a movie that contains the gamut of Nicolas Cage, which is like, really loud, boisterous type performances, but also like really odd, weird performances. Like the way he plays the Tourette's, the way he plays the tics, the way he plays the OCD, it's just like elevated beyond, I think, the way that anyone else would play it. Like it's just the way he contorts his face for this eye tick he has is just, it's vintage Nicolas Cage. But he also manages to pull off the drama too. Like this is the remarkable thing about Nic Cage as an actor, is like he can make you feel really, really terribly bad for what is throughout most of the movie a kind of zany character.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's this is one of the few movies where he gets to do all of the things that he's good at. I think that's true. Because it's, I wouldn't have been so devastated by this movie that I still starkly remember the heartbreak of the ending decades later if I weren't fully invested in this character.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be fully invested in the character if Nicolas Cage hadn't completely sucked me in and sold it to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some movies though where the Nic Cage of it all like is distracting from the overall movie, where like he goes full Nic Cage and it just doesn't quite fit in the movie it's in. Did you feel that way about this at all? Did it feel at home in this film?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, I just bought. I think that my answer to that question is like, I just bought him as a character. Like, that's the ideal in any movie, really, with any actor, is you forget you're watching Nic Cage, right? You're like, this is this character. This is this guy. He's interacting with with this girl who he thinks is his daughter. He's a con man. Blah blah blah. Right? Like, you're not thinking about, Nic Cage is being goofy, right? And I wasn't, even when he was being goofy, I wasn't thinking about that. And as you say, there are movies where, he overdoes it, like Face Off or whatever, where it's like you're disconnected from the movie already, and so you're kind of just laughing at the ridiculous things that are happening, and you're laughing at the ridiculous Nic Cage of it all. But that's the thing, is he's actually so good that I think usually I just buy it, and then him being sort of big with his performance actually just kind of elevates things.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah, I think that's right. I agree with you that I did not find it distracting or off-putting in this movie at all. I think this is kind of from the first moment we meet him, this guy is kind of a fully fleshed out neurotic weird character that you just are kind of along for the ride. And it is really remarkable actually to think about the version of that character that we see at the very beginning of the movie to the version of the character we see like in the middle of him with his daughter, you know, because he is just a normal guy right there, you know, like it's almost like a switch is flipped in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there's that, and then I think there's even sort of a third version at the very end of the movie where you're seeing kind of a much more subdued,
yeah,
because even in the middle of the movie, there's still a kind of edge of mania that he's having to keep a lid on.
mm-hmm.
But then, you know, you're finding him at the end of the movie. He's quiet. He's centered. He's comfortable with himself. And yet it all, you know, there's continuity. There's a feeling of closure, and there's a feeling of growth over the course of the movie. And yeah, I just think it's really good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So to take everything back to Sir Ridley Scott himself, Matt, why do you think he made this movie? What is it about this story that is Ridley Scott to you?
Yeah, I don't know, man, because we've talked so much about like the last several movies, the last almost all the way back to Thelma and Louise. There's been this sense of like spectacle and like heightened drama, like even you know, Hannibal, which didn't have like a massive set piece. It was still intense. It was still wild. It still had these like operatic moments of like, you know, total madness and just over the top drama. And this one, it is a fairly straightforward con film with no giant crazy set pieces. The closest thing to a giant crazy set piece is like a man chasing a car on foot in a parking garage, you know. So I don't know, you know, like I don't know, you know, the budget's like much lower. The last time he had a budget comparable to this one would have been like G.I. Jane, which inflation wise probably a comparable budget. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just reaching here. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those movies that there's several movies on this list, this Ridley Scott list that we're going through, that you look at and you're like, I didn't know he did that one. You know, and this is one of them to me, where it's just like I watched this movie, I enjoyed this movie, and it never occurred to me that this was a Ridley Scott movie. It just never did. And I think that's the most interesting thing about him as a director, is just this idea that like he definitely has a type. I was thinking a lot about Gore Verbinski the other day, because I was listening to a podcast talking about his films and how they called him a chameleon, which they stole shamelessly from us, by the way.
Yeah.
And like the thing about Gore Verbinski is he was never doing, like, I think the thing we struggled most with through that entire series was every movie was different, and so finding a through line was really difficult. Like what is the prototypical Gore Verbinski movie? I don't know. There certainly is a prototypical Ridley Scott movie, like that definitely exists. Like you can look at this list and see, like I think we said he has like 3 lanes, right? He's got the sci-fi lane, he's got the sword and sandals lane, and then his third lane is really just like a dirt road of random ideas, which is movies like this, where it's just this kind of much smaller character focused thing that you're like, I can't believe this is the guy that did it. But I think you're onto something with your idea of in this point in his career, like with the 1, 2, 3 of Hannibal, Black Hawk Down, and Matchstick Men. He's really looking at movies that make you feel bad, and put you emotionally through a ringer.
You could even say Gladiator has kind of a downer ending with Maximus dying, although
sure,
it's like, well, he gets its vengeance, but he dies, you know. So it's on the scale of things, I think his dramatic inclinations are toward like tragedy, actually.
I do very much think, like, in my mind, this feels like a deliberate attempt by Ridley Scott to say, I am going to do something a little different. I am going to tell I want to tell a con story. I want to tell, you know, I like The Sting. I like con movies. I want to tell a story kind of similar to that. and I'm gonna shrink everything down and do that. I look like this movie had a $62 million budget, and part of me is like, what did you spend it on? Like, where did like as you said, G.I. Jane had a $50 million budget, and yeah, with inflation that's probably comparable to Matchstick Men, but like G.I. Jane had a lot more stunts and action sequences and things and complicated moments. Like they had to do a lot of stuff in water, which is always expensive. And I'm like, did Nic Cage just get $40 million for this movie? Is that where the budget? Like, I honestly don't know, like where that money went. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The acting and some amount of set, but yeah, I don't see millions of dollars of sets being built. Really, I don't really know. It's a good question.
The only other thing I'll say here is I have one critique of Ridley Scott that I've seen in the past few movies. He's really gotten into this speed ramping thing, and it's not the same version of like the God, who's the director of the Batman vs Superman? What the fuck is this? Why can't I remember? Thank you. It's not the Zack Snyder speed ramping, but it's this like, in Gladiator, the moments where everything went slow-mo briefly.
Yeah.
And I think those moments worked in Gladiator, but since then he's been doing it in every one of his movies. Like there's moments in Hannibal where suddenly everything, like the film goes really grainy and it slows down, and then in Black Hawk Down, and then like it happens in this movie too. And I just thought it was like a totally wrong movie for that type of thing. Like I can't remember exactly where it happens in this movie. I think it's when he wakes up and it is like first busts out of the trailer that he's been in that was made to look like a hospital room, and like we just go to slow-mo for some reason, and I just like, Ridley, you don't, I know it worked in Gladiator and everyone liked that movie, but you don't need to do that here.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's an affectation that I don't think has aged particularly well. I think that maybe it was overused by less talented people or something. Mm-hmm. And I just don't. Okay, my problem with it is my problem with a lot of camera stuff, which is that it's distracting. Yep. And it reminds me I'm watching a movie, which is so funny, right? It's such a weird personal thing because it's like, well, everything the camera does could conceivably remind you you're watching a movie, but most of it follows some pretty simple rules, and your brain just is like, these are just the rules. And then when it does something, when the movie does something that the movie has not done at all yet, like play with, speed ramping at, minute 90, you really notice, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie and this is all fake. So yeah. I don't like that kind of thing in general.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, it just doesn't, like, it's the type of thing where like the way camera moves and choices like that work is that they elevate the moment, and they're highlighting some emotion or feeling you want to feel in that moment. And I think it does work in Gladiator quite a bit. I think every time he uses it in Gladiator, just about, I think it works really well, but it was the wrong choice for this movie, I think. And it distracted me every time I saw it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Gladiator is consistent in using it in the same sorts of situations in action scenes, and it's basically an action movie. And so you're just like, cool, this is, I mean, like Zack Snyder's a good example. Zack Snyder can do all kinds of wild shit because he does it consistently. And so you're like, yeah, this is just what this is, right?
Yeah. But also it's really bad when Zack Snyder does it because he's a bad filmmaker.
Oh, interesting.
Is that a controversial take? I don't think. Name one good Zack Snyder movie.
I don't know. Just enjoy all the emails you're gonna get because you said that.
I don't think. No, it turns out the whole Snyderverse thing was just a bunch of bots. So there's no actual humans that liked those movies. So I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Good.
I'm just kidding, folks. I'm sure he's great theoretically. I liked his Dawn of the Dead remake. That was pretty good.
Uh-huh.
I like that. I think you should do more stuff like that and less Batman stuff, please.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Matt. So let's move on from Sir Ridley Scott, but move to the actor he worked with. Before we do that, though, I think the next Deconstructing Scott movie we have coming up is a big one, Matt. It's Kingdom of Heaven. This is going to be the first, I think, and probably only Ridley Scott movie we are going to specifically set out to watch the director's cut for. I think that's accurate, right? That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I believe so.
So if you are, following along at home, we suggest you watch the director's cut before next week's episode, because it is substantially longer and substantially different from the theatrical cut, which is why we're doing it.
Sounds good.
Doof. All right, Matt, let's get to Nicolas Cage. Let's do it. So the way this is going to work, as we open the doors of the house of our beautiful Hall of Fame, we're going to go through all of the films of Nicolas Cage one at a time in excruciating detail, and we're going to decide whether or not those movies are indicative of his career enough to be one of the 10 and only 10. We will only have 10 movies by the end of this thing that will be in the Hall of Fame with Nic Cage. So
yeah.
Let's just go ahead and begin. I was kind of joking about going through them one by one, because
right.
we're not actually going to go through with them one by one. There's way too many, especially here at the beginning. A lot of these are smaller movies that we didn't see. Like yes, it is true that Nicolas Cage is in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's a cameo. He's just like right there. We don't really have to talk about that much more than that.
Yeah, and honestly, I've seen maybe 10% of his movies. He's done so many goddamn movies.
I want to meet the person that's watched every single Nicolas Cage movie.
I bet there's a podcast that just goes through. Yeah.
That's our next podcast, actually.
Oh my god,
it's Caging Nicholas.
That's okay, sounds good.
I mean, I think the first movie that he starred in was a movie called Valley Girl, but I don't think we need to put that in. I actually think looking through his early movies, there's a Moonstruck, which is the movie that he played opposite of Cher. I've seen that movie one time. So I don't have a lot of memory of it though. There's Vampire's Kiss, which is the comedy movie in which he is turned into a vampire. That's been memeified. That's been kind of the Nic Cage memification a little bit happened in that movie.
See, I don't even know what that is. I've not heard of that.
Really? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think for it to qualify as a career defining movie, I have to have heard of it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So really looking at these early movies, I think the first one that really sticks out to all of us is 1987's Raising Arizona, which is, I think, one of the big moments for Nic Cage. I think this actually came out before Moonstruck, technically. What do you think? Raising Arizona. Do you think this is quintessential Nic Cage?
I mean, this is probably in some sense like wrong, but my feeling is that is kind of when he broke into public awareness. I think, it's a Coen Brothers movie. Mm-hmm. It was certainly the first time that I became, not that I watched Raising Arizona in 1987, but I think it
mm-hmm.
was one of the first movies of his that I saw and was like, oh, this is the youngest Nic Cage that I've seen, and this is great. So I'm happy with that one.
Okay, let's make that a yes. I think that's great early career Nic Cage. We've got that, so that's a definite. And then looking through these other movies, I haven't seen a lot of these as well. There's shocking amount of direct-to-video movies in the 90s. I didn't think we did that as much back then, but there's still a lot of those he was in.
Yeah.
Again, looking at these 90 movies, I think again there is a little bit of a lull until we get to 1995, and I think 1995 is really when Nic Cage gets shot into the stratosphere, because in 1995 he is in Leaving Las Vegas. That is the movie that got him nominated, and did he win an Academy Award? I'm not actually sure. Let's double check that. Yes, that is what he won the Best Actor Oscar in 1995 for his role in as Ben Sanderson in Leaving Las Vegas. I feel like that has to be a yes, right? Like it's been a very, very long time since I've seen Leaving Las Vegas. Probably wouldn't go on my top 10 list, but how can you not put the movie that made him an Academy Award winner on there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've actually seen it, weirdly, but
oh wow, okay.
But yeah, it's got to go in there. Yeah.
But then the 90s, like he becomes one of the biggest actors on the planet, right? Like he has the 1-2-3 punch of The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off in 96, and then both 97s. And then he has City of Angels after that, which is a fucking weird movie. I want to talk to you about City of Angels. Have you seen that movie?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I saw all these movies. I was like the prime age for all these action movies that he was in, and then City of Angels came out, I don't know why I saw it, because it's like, why would I was certainly not the prime audience for City of Angels, but it was like, well, Nic Cage is Nic Cage. He's so hot right now. He's going to be Superman. Nic Cage is going to be Superman. Everybody remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. So yeah, just for those of you that don't know, we'll go back to the action movies here, because we are definitely not putting City of Angels in this thing. So let's just go ahead and talk about it. The concept of City of Angels is Nicolas Cage plays an angel, a literal angel, that falls in love with a woman played by Meg Ryan. It's a romantic story between an angel of death and a woman. And the end of the movie is she dies because she's riding her bicycle and decides to close her eyes and put her arms wide while riding a bicycle on a highway.
I'm seeing it in my head right now.
Isn't that the wildest fucking thing in the world? I have this very distinct memory of watching this and being like, why is she doing that? She's gonna die. And then she died. And
she died. Yeah, and there's like the truck jackknifes, and like of course the film is doing it where you're just hearing music, whereas in reality you would immediately hear the incredible noise of a giant truck beginning to jackknife really close to you on the road, and you would react to that in some way. But see, he has given up his angelhood to be with her, so now he's. What's funny is I don't actually remember how the movie ends. Like
I don't think she actually dies. I think he like refuses to like take her to heaven or something. It's something weird. Okay. I think the thing most well known about City of Angels is that damn Goo Goo Dolls song though, which was the thing in the 90s, right? Every movie had like a theme song.
Yeah,
and it was that fucking Goo Goo Doll song. I'll never forget that.
You're right. That was a thing where there would be like that was what like popular music was for a while. Was like Seal's "Kissed by a Rose on the Grave" from the Batman movie and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, so City of Angels is a definite no. Absolutely not. But we have a problem here. And the problem is The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off. Is there room in the Hall of Fame for more than one of these movies? And if the answer to that is no, which one is it going to be?
So I would say the Rock is the one that is actually a good movie, basically, and also has the best actual Nicolas Cage performance. And then the other two are not good movies and also not good Nicolas Cage performances, really, fundamentally.
Okay, I agree with you on The Rock.
Okay.
I agree with you on I actually think Con Air is just a legitimately bad movie, and I think everything Nic Cage is doing in that movie is awful. Like his southern accent doesn't work at all. It's a dumb character. I don't like the movie.
Yeah.
I struggle with the idea that this list does not have Face Off in it, because while I don't think it's a particularly good movie, it is Face Off, the greatest movie of all time.
I think we're allowed to have Face Off on here just for the memes, honestly.
Sure. So, here's what I'm going to do. Let's put it in the maybe column, and let's see where we are further down the list and if it'll fit in.
Sounds good.
How's that feel to you? Does that feel okay?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So after this, he does a movie called Snake Eyes, which I know I saw. I have very distinct memories of him wearing like a weird suit with a Hawaiian shirt. This is a De Palma movie. I don't remember anything about this movie at all. But I've definitely seen it. Do you remember this movie at all?
No memory of it.
Okay. Well, that's easy decision there. I do remember 8mm, which is him, the snuff film movie, which like really fucked me up. I think this is a really good movie actually, but I don't know if it should be on this list or not.
Yeah, I think I've only seen it like once. You know what? This is definitely one of those movies that came out a few years after 7, because everybody wanted to make 7.
Yeah.
And it's a good movie. It's not a great movie, and it's a very dark performance. So I guess that should count for something. Yeah, I think that's a maybe.
Mm-hmm. Then we have a Martin Scorsese movie called Bringing Out the Dead. Like, Jesus, he's working with everyone. That's like everyone wants to work with this guy.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing, right? Is this incredible hot streak that he has? Yeah,
I don't remember a damn thing about Bringing Out the Dead.
Yeah.
It could be the best Nic Cage movie, and I honestly couldn't tell you. So
yeah, I haven't seen. We get back into a realm of movies where I haven't seen most of these actually.
Well, you've certainly seen Gone in 60 Seconds, though.
I have seen Gone in 60 Seconds.
He plays Memphis Reigns.
That's another one that I lean toward putting on the list just for the memes and the popularity.
It's weird because it's such a fucking strange movie.
Uh-huh.
Like, do you remember how the villain in that movie is like really obsessed with carving wood? And it's like, what's that in here for?
Yeah.
Because like the end of the movie is like he's in his office like breaking all his wood carvings, and the guy's really upset about it. And I'm like, what is going on? I lean towards no on this. I don't think it's that good of a movie. But I mean, if you want to, we can put it in maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if we're running out, then we can do a maybe. I just feel I feel like what you just described is so quintessentially like late 90s like screenwriting style. You know, like I feel like somebody who's selling books that recommended that you do stuff like that to your villain or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. The other movie that's worth talking about here is a movie called The Family Man that also came out the same year as Gone in 60 Seconds. Have you seen this movie?
I don't think so.
So this is one of those high concept movies where Nicolas Cage plays like a super rich investment broker, and he is like given the magical ability. Like he goes to bed one day and then he wakes up and he's in the life that he did not choose, where like I think he broke up with his girlfriend Téa Leoni in order to become like a big shot investment banker. And so he wakes up one morning and he's married to her with children and like living in the suburbs and like working at a used car dealership or something. And so it's like a movie about like the rich asshole gets to see what his life would have been like if he made different choices. And of course he falls in love with that life. And then it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I think I did see this actually, by the way. It took me most of that description to remember it though.
I was 15 years old when this movie came out. I saw it with my family and it really affected me. I don't know if it's a good movie or not. I just like, I think at 15 years old, a movie about like, don't make the wrong choices in your life is like really affecting. Cause like you're on the cusp of having to start making those choices.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I just remember walking out of this movie being like, I can't be like this guy. I have to be the guy that prioritizes his family. I have to be that guy. But whether or not this should make it on the list, I don't think so.
I don't know. I would lean toward no because I have no memory of it at all. But the fact that it was important to you, I don't know. Whatever you think.
Well, we'll give it a solid maybe. How about we do that?
Right.
So from there we have a movie called Captain Corelli's Mandolin. This is one of the he was in a lot of World War II movies, I feel like, at one point. Like he was in this movie and then he was in Wind Talkers, which are two World War II movies that came out within like 2 years of each other, starring Nic Cage. And I have no memory of either of them.
Uh-huh.
I don't think either of them are particularly good.
No, I have no memory of them either. I think I saw Wind Talkers, but that's what's funny is some of these movies I'm like, oh yeah, I did see that, but I really don't remember, so can't have been that good.
And then from here, Matt, we get into a really interesting phase of Nicolas Cage's career. He directs a film in 2002 called Sunny. I haven't seen this movie, so we can't put it in. He also plays a small role in it. But then he does Adaptation in 2002, Matchstick Men, the movie we just talked about in 2003, National Treasure in 2004, Lord of War in 2005, also The Weatherman in 2005, and then The Wicker Man in 2006. And then in between that, he does a voice in The Ant Bully. He also does a movie called World Trade Center about the collapse of the World Trade Center on 9/11. I'm gonna go ahead and say no to World Trade Center. I don't know about you. Like that was that was a bad idea for a movie. It's an Oliver Stone movie. I wept during it because of nothing to do with the film itself, but just with like the emotional trauma that everyone experienced around 9/11. Like
Right.
just perfectly activates that, and so you get really sad. But I don't think that movie needs to be in. But like, we've got a big stack of movies here. Which of these do you think are worthy of entry here?
Yeah. So this really highlights that there's like meme Nicolas Cage, and then there's like actually great Nicolas Cage.
Mm-hmm.
I think The Weatherman is a movie that's actually great. I want to put The Weatherman in there.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and say yes to The Weatherman.
Yeah.
But my hesitation here, if there is any, is I think Adaptation, Matchstick Men, The Weatherman are three movies around the same period in Nicolas Cage's career that I think are all Nicolas Cage, serious dramatic actor, and he's actually really fucking good.
Yeah.
And so do we want to put more than one of those in? Because I'm gonna fight for The Weatherman, or for Adaptation all day, because A, that's one of my favorite movies of all time, and B, I think it's just quintessential Nic Cage, and he's playing two versions of himself, and it's absolutely wonderful.
I honestly have no problem with putting all three of those in, and the reason is I scroll down past this point and I see relatively little that I am inclined to say would compete with with Weatherman or Adaptation or Matchstick Men for that matter.
Okay.
So I think despite the fact that we have a full 15 years of career left, I'm just not seeing a whole lot more that I want to add. As I might be missing something. I'm just skimming it with my eyes.
Sure.
But,
no, I think that's fair. And so then we get to the big question on everyone's mind. Are you going to steal the Declaration of Independence? And I think the answer has to be yes.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think a Nicolas Cage Hall of Fame movie or Hall of Fame list can exist without National Treasure on it. Again, not a great movie, but a quintessential Nicolas Cage movie.
It would be dishonest of us to make this list without National Treasure.
I agree with you. It has to be on it. Now, National Treasure 2, happy to keep that one off the list. But National Treasure itself, Benjamin Franklin Gates, who is related to... who is he related to? I don't even remember.
It doesn't... Yeah, no, I don't remember.
It's just an incredible film that is just so fucking absurd. Sean Bean as the villain. Wow. Just wow to everything in this movie. What a film. Does Lord of War do anything for you?
I've never actually seen it.
He plays a arms dealer, and kind of an arms dealer like reckoning in a similar way to in Matchstick Men. He played a con man reckoning with the fact that he's a con man. In Lord of War, he's an arms dealer reckoning with the fact that he's an arms dealer.
I've never seen it, so okay. Up to you.
I'm gonna put it in the maybe column. We'll see how we stand.
Okay.
I think it's one of his better ones, but not entirely convinced. The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man. That's the meme movie.
That's the meme one, and I've never seen it. And I really hope we don't have to put something on there where it's literally just for a gif of him screaming bees.
Not the bees. Yeah.
Not the bees. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good movie. It's a remake of a 1973 horror film that Nicolas Cage kind of jumps in weirdly and then is attacked by bees, and it became a huge meme for obvious reasons because he's wearing a wicker helmet with bees in it. I get it. Like I get it, but also I agree with you that like just do it. We would just be making a meme list, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy to leave it off.
How do you feel about Johnny Blaze and when they tried to make Ghost Rider a thing and somehow made more than one movie?
I mean, that's probably a big movie in terms of his career, and it probably made him a lot of money. I don't know that for a fact though. So actually, I'm kind of curious about that. Let's see, how much did Ghost Rider make? 1 second. That's now, budget shouldn't. Yeah, they made a lot of money on that one. So, yeah, I'd say maybe for that one.
Ghost Rider, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that like so obviously Nicolas Cage has been known to have financial issues, right? Like he spends his money poorly and ends up being in a lot of movies merely because he needs to pay some mortgages. And the Ghost Rider series are certainly things that kept him afloat during those times.
Yep. You always need that.
Now we have to talk about a movie called Next.
I actually love this movie.
Okay, talk to me about Next, Matt, because I do not, and I want
I
I
mean,
want to hear this.
I mean, it's exactly the kind of trash sci-fi that I love, where it just takes a simple sci-fi premise where he can see the future in a limited way, and then he does cool shit in response to that. So like, there's fun action scenes where like he gets out of impossible situations because he's not super strong, he's not super fast, he's not, but he can see what's going to happen a few seconds in advance, and so he just manages to like not be where the bullets are going to be hitting, and not be where the guy's fist is going to be, and it's just fun. Like, it's just a fun, simple, short movie. It doesn't overpromise, nor does it overdeliver. It just is what it is. I'm not gonna like go to the mat for it. I'm just saying it's a movie that I enjoy.
So Next is a movie in which he sees limited precognitions of the future. Knowing is a movie where he sees limited precognitions of the future in which the Earth dies.
Ah, yeah, I remember that now.
So we're gonna say, I look. He plays a magician in Next, and I feel like anytime Nicolas Cage plays a magician, should probably at least write down the word maybe.
Yeah,
so
sounds good.
I'm gonna go ahead and give you that on Knowing. I'm gonna say Next. I'm gonna say no on Knowing.
No,
which is a bad movie.
Yeah.
So he's in a movie called Bangkok Dangerous, which I don't think we need to talk about. But he's also in a movie called Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. Did you see this movie?
Nope.
So this is actually a remake of a God, when did Bad Lieutenant first come out? Don't remember. This is a Nicolas Cage plays a really terrible person movie. It has Eva Mendes in it. It obviously takes place in New Orleans. It's a post Katrina New Orleans in which he's playing a detective that is just a miserable piece of shit investigating a killing. I don't remember if this movie redeems him or not, but it's interesting watching him like fully embrace bad guy, which he definitely does here.
Okay. Yeah, I know nothing about it, so up to you.
I'll give it a maybe.
Okay.
Then we have Kick-Ass. He plays Big Daddy in Kick-Ass, a movie that I loved the first time I saw it and haven't watched it since, and wonder if it's aged badly. But
yeah,
he's so Nicolas Cagey in this movie in the best ways ever. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I do like so I don't know if the movie holds up in its entirety, but I think his performance is great. So I think we can put that on there. At least a maybe.
Okay. We got a maybe. Then we have a movie called Drive Angry. Don't really need to talk about that one. There's a lot of these movies like the aging Nicolas Cage is in a movie with a very young, attractive woman in it. This one, he's with Amber Heard, is his co-star in this movie.
Oh dear.
Yeah. He's also in a movie, but I think 2010 and 2011, Matt, have The Sorcerer's Apprentice and Season of the Witch, which are, I believe, two I Need to Pay Mortgage movies.
Yeah.
They're two fantasy movies in which he plays a sorcerer and then a knight. Anything these movies do anything for you?
No. We're entering a realm where I haven't seen many of these movies, and then we're about to enter a realm where my first child is born and I stopped seeing movies entirely for a number of years. So I'm about to just be like, yeah, don't know, didn't see it for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like looking through all these, like we're gonna stop going one by one because there's, I mean, he plays a role in The Croods, which is, I mean, maybe it's worth talking about Nicolas Cage as a voice actor because he does very well off of that.
Yeah,
like The Croods was a pretty big movie actually when it came out, so maybe that's, I've never seen it, but maybe that's worth considering. But like the rest of these, Dying of the Light is actually a movie I saw. It was a direct-to-movie video I saw one day because I'm like, I'm gonna watch a Nic Cage movie, and it was real bad. He did a Left Behind movie based on those Christian Rapture books that I never saw, that was awful. He did, Pay the Ghost is another one of those direct-to-video movies I saw for some reason. So really, I think in this period of his career, the only movie that I think is worth anything is the movie called Joe that came out in 2013. It was directed
Okay.
by David Gordon Green, who has done both of the Halloween films. He works with Danny McBride a lot. He's a very good director, and this is a very good movie. So I'm gonna put that as the only reason I'm not putting it as a yes definitively is because you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'll just save us the trouble, because I just read through all the remaining movies, and I'll say the only two that I saw past this point are The Croods and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which are both voice acting, and that is out of how many movies is that? That's a total of
like 40.
Google Sheets doesn't do this for us. Yeah, it's like 40 movies between 2013 and now that I haven't seen. Shocking, actually, because I'm like, well, I've wanted to see some of these, like Mandy. I wanted to see Mandy, but yeah. So I'm not gonna have a lot to add from this point on.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go very quickly through the rest of these. I've seen a lot more of these than you have, but I think I've seen the movie Mom and Dad, the 2017 movie. I saw that at Fantastic Fest, and that was very, very fun. It's basically a movie, another one of these high concept movies where in this time, for some reason, I don't even think the movie ever bothers to explain it, but for some reason, like parents, their protect their child instincts get reversed, and so they just decide they want to murder all their children. And so it's about Nic Cage like using a handy saw to try to murder his children. It's a lot of fun. I don't think it needs to be on here.
Okay.
That's really one of the highlights, I think. But people should check it out. It's short. It's very fun. I really think Mandy is the only one in here that I would, and I'm going to go ahead and say yes for Mandy, because I think it is kind of quintessential late career Nic Cage, where again he gets to go full bore with his wildness, but it's also this very like it's a wild, like kind of heavy metal type movie, but it's also very dramatic for him. He gets to do both. It's the best of both worlds. So Mandy, cool. I would see that movie, Matt, for sure.
Okay.
I hesitate to put Spider-Man on here because yes, he's in it. It's such a small role.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should put that in there.
No.
Color Out of Space, another movie I really loved. That is based off of a fuck. Why can't
Lovecraft?
A Lovecraft story? Yeah, it's a good movie. Apparently the director is a total creep, Richard Stanley, but
okay.
Really good movie. I don't know if it should go on this list. I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
So going through the rest of these, I think there's 2021's Pig, which I still have not seen, but is apparently a very, very good movie that I'm going to put as a maybe on here. And then we have, I think, the one that we have to put on this list, which is 2022, this year's The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, a movie in which Nic Cage plays Nic Cage, kind of dealing like it's this incredibly meta, wonderful film. Everyone needs to see it. It has to be on here. It is the most Nic Cage movie that ever existed, because he's just being it's commenting on Nic Caginess, and it's really, really good. Seriously. All right, Matt. So we have reached the end of our list. We have gone through every single movie and we have added it all up. And here's what we got. We have 9. Somehow we have 9 yeses. I thought we had less than that. I was worried that like we had like only a couple and then a bunch of maybes. But we have right now, out of our 10 movies, we have 9 yeses. So would you like me to read them off real quick?
Go for it.
So we have 1987's Raising Arizona. We have 1995's Leaving Las Vegas. We have The Rock, Adaptation, Matchstick Men, National Treasure, The Weatherman, Mandy, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Those are 9. I feel pretty good about those 9, actually. I was a little worried that I would look at those and go, oh, we shouldn't have picked that. But I feel pretty good. But we do have one spot open. We have one spot open. And here's the maybes we have. We have Face Off, 8mm, Gone in 60 Seconds, Lord of War, Ghost Rider, Next, Bad Lieutenant, Kick-Ass, Joe, Pig, and that's it. So of those, are there any that you read that was like, this is ridiculous, we should have put this as a yes to begin with?
None that's jump out super strong. I mean, I think Kick-Ass was a really good role of his. It's not very serious and it's not a major role, but I liked it.
The only one I'm leaning towards is Face Off.
Yeah, I think Face Off is probably the pick, because again, it's like that's he may be better known for that than he is even for like The Rock, you know. So yeah.
I guess the question I have now. So if we sort, if we look at our 10 here, did we go too far in a certain kind of Nic Cage and not pick up the other important thing? So again, the 10 movies we have are Raising Arizona, Leaving Las Vegas, The Rock, Face Off, Adaptation, Matchstick Men, National Treasure, The Weatherman, Mandy, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
No,
actually, no. I feel like that feels pretty comprehensive, because we have the big, loud, dumb action movies where he goes full Cage. We have the contemplative character study movies where he gets to really mess with his dramatic chops. We have the comedy, because he is good at comedy. So we have that. And then we have the meta movie that kind of puts a capper on this whole thing. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about this.
Yeah, these are a variety of the faces of Nic Cage. I'm happy with this too. Yeah.
All right. So that's it. So those are the 10 movies. So Nicolas Cage, welcome here. We will give you a stack of 10 Blu-rays and DVDs. I don't know. Some of these might not be on Blu-ray. So just an old DVD, maybe a video cassette. And we'll just stack those, and we'll have a marble pedestal that we can stack those movies on, and then another that he can sit on, that he's required to sit on at least 4 hours a day for us.
Yeah. And there's nothing that like plays movies in the chamber, because that would really break the aesthetic. But the DVD, like the discs are there though. Yeah,
it's just to really observe and contemplate on those 10 movies.
Yeah.
So that is it. Welcome Nic Cage to the Hall of Fame. He will not be the last. I think this was fun. I enjoyed this. I think Nic Cage is kind of a weird person to do it with, because there's been so many movies. So like, I think it'd be really fun to do it with like Tom Cruise, for example. I think we could have a great conversation about Tom Cruise's career and what movies, how we would distill that career down to 10 movies.
Yeah.
Because I think Tom Cruise has been in much less bad, objectively bad films than like Nic Cage has.
I agree.
So we will do this again. I enjoyed it. Let us know if you enjoyed it at home, and let us know what you think of our 10 Nic Cage Hall of Fame films. Matt, what were those 10 movies again? Let's just read them one more time.
One last time. Face Off, Raising Arizona, Leaving Las Vegas, The Rock, Adaptation, Matchstick Men, National Treasure, The Weatherman, Mandy, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I like it. That's the list. Thank you, Matt, for working through those with me. And thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it at home.
Yeah, it was fun.
But that is it for this week. If you have any opinions on Nicolas Cage on this list, or of course on Ridley Scott's Matchstick Men, please feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or on Twitter @doofmedia. You can, of course, find us over at our subreddit. That's r/doofmedia, where you will find a post for this topic, or this very episode. And you can post what your Hall of Fame Nic Cage movies would be. They'll probably be ours, because we picked the perfect list and there's no negotiating that. But let us know.
Yeah. I'd like to see if anybody else feels super strongly about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, then we encourage you to go do that. You can find us on any of the major podcasting platforms.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at any of the available levels. And maybe you too could get a spot in the house next to Nic Cage and his stack of DVDs. I don't know. Maybe we'll start throwing that as a perk. We'll just toss you in there.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds awesome. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That is right. And that is going to do it for us this week. We will see you next week as we continue deconstructing Scott with his 2005 war epic. What do you call Kingdom of Heaven?
His historical
war
religious
drama.
epic. Yeah.
Kingdom of Heaven, starring Legolas.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.